one question that already came up was, what does your death altar look like? And you've sort of described it a little bit. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to your kind of description of what that looks like for you.
Yeah. Um, I love the response. It can look different for each person.
Mhm.
And I think, often folks find it meaningful to put a picture or a memento of people that we've lost in that space. Um, I think for me, having it in my life is a way of honoring that those people are very much part of my life, even if they're not in this current realm.
Mm.
And I know for me, many of us have cultures, even if we're multiple generations distanced from those cultures, that have some practice of altar building. And so, one question might be like, is there a practice that's connected with either our family or our spiritual family that might feel powerful? So, whether that's like an Irish or a German or English, like ancient practice, or whether that's a Unitarian Universalist practice that might be connected to a practice of having an altar with a chalice on it.
Mm.
And I think, yeah, I mean, how I grew up was like, this is also a place where the ability to communicate with your ancestors is more porous. And
Mm.
so it's a physical location where I can go and create some space to be present with those people and those losses rather than feeling like they're here, but like but not having a physical space to like tap into those connections.
I feel like it's easy, or like it helps us grapple with things when we externalize them. To have a place to go to write down our thoughts, to write those letters. It helps us be in relationship with it rather than it kind of being just a mess of bodily and thought experiences. So I'm just like seeing that thread of the practices
Yeah.
are just ways to be in relationship within it that helps us grapple with it rather than just kind of being consumed in it. Um,
Yeah. And I know not everyone's life is like this, but I know for many of us, we live more and more in our heads. Like we receive so much information in written form from the news, on our phones, over email. And then that's very different than I think in some ways how humans evolved, which was in a very concrete realm of like
mm,
we hold our loved ones when they die because we never moved far from them.
right.
We think of them on anniversaries, surrounded by other people who knew them because we live in one place. And no judgment on this world or past world or other worlds. But I do think for those of us who really live in the headspace, making things concrete is very powerful.
Mhm. Well, there's so many good
Um,
questions that we could get to in the chat, but I think our time has come to a close. That what when you were speaking, Elizabeth, about the kind of rituals, it made me think about some of the practices we do at Foothills, the practice around All Souls Day and Halloween of our altar building and remembering. And I know that our climate justice ministry is going to be inviting some opportunities for grief salons around
mm,
climate grief, that opportunity to come together and to name that grief together. So I think it's one of the gifts of having a community and a spiritual tradition that tries to make space for that grief for us, because it's hard to both do the grief and like create the structure to deal with the grief at the same
totally.
time. I think that's the gift of a community, is that we can do that for each other. Um, and so I just want to thank you, Elizabeth, for being a part of that tradition that helps us do this work together of just naming it for us in a new way.
Yeah, no, so glad to be with you all and yeah, honoring the really powerful questions in the chat and hoping there's some space for more of that in the breakouts and in all the different ways that you all gather from here.
Thanks so much.